Hello everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of a voiceover thing this time around. I'm looking at a video from what I recorded without any audio and talking over the audio that would be in the video. Very interesting for me to do because I have not really done this very much before. I've done it once in the past and it did not work very well at all. It was when I did the whole airplane flying thing. I kind of cut myself off very rapidly towards the end there. Well, the mission we have today is to send a Kethane scanning probe all the way to Minmus. There we can start to scan for Kethane and hopefully find a nice Kethane deposit where we can set up a good mining site. Excuse me. Quick drink of water. So, I'm just going through the basics of launching things once again, and you know, I've done that a whole bunch of times, and it's pretty much been seen often enough that I don't really need to record it at all. So I decided, you know, since I'm going to do that, I might as well try this voiceover thing again, get better at doing it. And a little bit of spoiler, something amazing happens at the end of this first bit here. This is a 9-minute video, though I might reduce it possibly. No, I'll reduce the second one. The second one is going to be a lot shorter. It's going to be another talky part where I'm talking over the video, but I will try to compress it as much as I can. So I'm still learning how to operate all the remote tech stuff. I'm getting better at it. I've learned that if you set things to target at a particular planet instead of a particular spacecraft, you get a cone of influence, which drastically changes the effect you get when you are trying to use drones for your space missions. You can kind of see on this screen right now that there are some white lines that are kind of going around Kerbin. These are actually the cone lines. Yes, I think this is the part of the video where I have those shown. But regardless, the cones make it easier for you to actually get stuff done because you only need to have the antennas out, and as long as you're inside the cone of influence, you are receiving a signal, so long as you have power and your antennas sticking out. So yeah, remote tech, getting the hang of it. Learning how to do it better. All's good. And the cone is actually going to be pretty useful in a little while. Or this particular satellite craft we're launching right now isn't the Kethane one, by the way. This is actually a long-range ComSat. As you see, it's got much bigger solar panels on it to power the larger reflectrons and satellite dishes to keep everything going at once. So it's got two different options. We have an option for the shorter range satellite dish, and we have one for a longer range satellite dish. The shorter range one is all we really need to target Minmus, and we're keeping this in a fairly low orbit. It's not going to be able to keep a consistent connection to Minmus, but it is better than nothing, right? So I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm very sorry about that. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this whole talking about things retroactively. If I had a better way of doing this, I probably would. Now maybe I can write stuff down to talk about while I'm doing these missions, while I'm waiting for nodes to show up. Like, have a little notebook here and think of something that I should mention and write it down, and then I'll be able to remember it later. But I didn't think of that before. So anyway, the ComSat, it's got an option for a very long-range ComSat, which we can use for when we start sending missions out to other planets. But for now, all we really need is the one satellite satellite dish for getting to Minmus. And the lower orbit, it means it's going to go around faster. But combine that with the KSC, and we should have a pretty good coverage of Minmus. Well, I already know what's going to happen, but you don't. So I'm going to talk about it like we don't know what's going to happen yet. It's a mystery. It's a mystery for everyone. And I decided that best thing for me to do right now in the video would be to deorbit the part we use to get the satellite into orbit. And I decided to just burn as much fuel as I possibly could. And this is getting to the point where something very interesting is about to happen. Let's see, we have about 3 minutes or so until that actually happens. So, let's see, what else can I talk about? Well, let's talk more about the mining operation that we're going to be setting up. Now, Minmus is my choice to do a mining operation because it's got the lowest gravity that I can get to with ease. So, I figured the best option for me would be to set up a mining operation on Minmus so I can use as little fuel as I possibly can to get our craft back into orbit around Minmus, where we can take the fuel to a processing facility. Now, you might be wondering why I don't just have the processing facility on the ground. That's because I decided that a processing facility in orbit, up in orbit would be much more efficient for me, because then I can more easily transfer the fuel, or rather, I don't need to worry about getting the fuel put into the storage area very much. And here we come back down. Let's see, what is our distance at? 8,000, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000. And we start slowing down very fast, actually. I didn't expect us to slow down this much when coming back in. But I could have easily put a parachute on here and just recovered the probe. And it would save me a lot of time from this. Oh yes, I seem to have replicated a Big Bang of some sort. We now have a geyser of explosions just constantly blasting outwards. And a very interesting thing happens as a result of this. If we go back to the tracking center in a few minutes, you'll actually see what just happened. And I believe this is when I'm going to actually have a part to talk about, so yeah. Well, actually, you might get a little bit of a preview when I scroll this down. I kind of forgot if it showed or not. Yes, it did. It does show. See, it seems that I have managed to create multiple probes at the exact same time from a single probe. So, success. Big Bang has been proven. No, it really hasn't. This hasn't proven anything about Big Bang. I just am saying that because it sounds kind of funny to me. Yeah, here we are back at the tracking center, and it's kind of obscured right now, but if you look behind the Kethane thing, you'll see exactly how many probes we now have. So I'm going to let my past self talk, and I'll get back to you in a moment. Alright, so that's enough for the talky part, or the past me talky part. That's very weird to say past me. Anyway, this is our Kethane probe, our scanner, the device we're going to use to detect whether or not we can find suitable amounts of Kethane. And I'm adding an inline reaction wheel, or a stabilizer, to make sure that we can actually tilt this thing a little bit more easily. Because I have noticed that it does have some slight problems when it comes to trying to turn left and right and up and down and all that kind of stuff. So this launcher stage has actually been proving to be pretty useful, pretty pretty much powerful, exactly what we need to get anywhere in the Kerbal system with a relatively light craft. It's able to get mostly all my satellites up without any issues at all. I just have to remind myself to make sure that I keep at half throttle to start with, so I'm not using up a huge amount of fuel. And we had a slight problem. Yes, it turns out that when I was adding that stabilizer, we kind of moved the stability enhancers into their own bracket. So a quick fix and we'll be able to take off like normal. And blast off. So once again, another satellite launch. Not much to watch here. You know, I know Scott Manley's Interstellar Quest series, he's been doing a 7-day period in between when he launches the craft and when he, well, between each rocket launch. I kind of like the idea, but it's not something I really want to do for myself. I enjoy doing these a little bit more frequently. I don't like waiting around so much, which is very strange when you are playing a game which requires you to wait around a lot. Anyway, now our satellite, our Kethane scanning probe satellite thing. Oh, I forgot to put a fade there. Oh well. Our Kethane probe is going to be using a slightly different tech so far. And right here we have decided to use the wide solar panels instead of long, just for the bottom section. And I realized very, very, very late that I forgot to add a reflectron or an antenna to the second probe body, so we're going to end up with a slightly bigger Kethane scanning satellite than I originally anticipated. That's not really going to be too much of an issue. I think next time I do a voiceover talk like this, I'm going to have to speed things up a little bit more and have more stuff to talk about while I'm actually playing the game instead of trying to talk about things retroactively. Now, let's see, we're gonna cut soon, and we're gonna be on a interplanetary, no, I don't know what you would call it. We're gonna do a transfer burn. And we're actually gonna do this all in one burn. We're gonna adjust our node so we're on the right inclination, and we are gonna burn to minimus at the exact same time. And we will have a slight issue in a while, because I forget to activate something. But it'll turn out fine, eventually. Because I decided to quick save quite often during this mission. And I'm going to be quick saving a lot more often because with the Kethane mining stuff and the Kerbal attachment system, we're able to make much, much larger craft in orbit. So we're going to end up having quite a few things. Well, we're going to have quite a few larger craft eventually. And I'm hoping to eventually also get space planes that I can actually take to atmospheric planets. Not exactly sure how well I'll be able to do that. I've only made, well, plane-looking space objects before. Yes, they look like planes. They're not planes, though. They don't really have the correct kind of... Well, I suppose they might be able to glide on re-entry, but the last one I made very much would not be the kind of craft that you can just fly off of a runway and get into space with. But with all the B9 parts and things like the Saber engine, I probably will be able to make a rather decent spaceplane. I'm quite confident about that. But let's talk about the future. Let's talk about more about what we're doing right now. Right now, we're just trying to get to Minimus, and it's going to be a slightly successful mission. We can say that. It's also going to be slightly unsuccessful because we will have to reload and get back out to Minimus. Yes, I'm giving away spoilers, I know, I'm sorry. But all in all, it's not going to affect the outcome of the video whether I spoil a section of it or not, because you don't know exactly what we're going to be doing at Minimus. You don't know how the initial transfer was a failure. And well, I won't tell you. I'll at least do that. And this is me actually kind of seeing how accurate the stage only resources are, because the electric charge is actually quite high for the single stage, but the liquid fuel is about accurate, so I think I'll end up having to do the stage only resources more often when I'm in the map view. I believe that's what you call it, map view. And we are slightly off, but thankfully we have RCS, so we can back ourselves down just a tiny amount. Yes, RCS is actually quite good when you need to make just a very minor adjustment to your transfer. I recommend people do it a lot more often. Okay. I don't really know what else I'm talking about right now. Let's talk more about the Kethane stuff. I was talking about why I would have a orbital conversion unit instead of a stationary on-the-ground conversion unit. The reason I would have an orbital one is mainly because, well, that's where I feel like having it. I don't know. To me, it makes more sense to have it in orbit because you can rendezvous with it more easily. You don't need to try to land the entire refinery section right next to the mining section. You can have a separate vehicle that can get closer much more accurately with that. A much lighter vehicle. And that lighter vehicle can transfer things up to the refinery area. And the refinery can then be a lot larger because it doesn't need to land. So you can have like a refinery with 8 orange fuel tanks lying in orbit and a giant column of the Kethane storage tanks. That way you can refine a lot more at once. So to me, an orbital refinery makes more sense than a ground refinery. Plus, since we're going to be on Minimus, it doesn't really take much fuel to bring it all back up there anyway, so we might as well. If we were going to be having a refinery on a place like Lathe, that, or even Duna, those I would have a refinery on the ground, because it would take much more effort to get into the air. I still probably would have a storage area in the atmosphere. In orbit, no, not in the atmosphere. A storage area in the atmosphere. I would have to make a very, very tall tower in order to do that. But I am kind of digressing on silly things. I think of silly things, and I'm talking about those more often than I talk about what I'm doing. But the next video we will definitely be having the orbital refinery stuff show up. And let's see, is this? No, we're not the next part yet. We're going to be getting to a part which originally was going to be recorded with me just talking over it normally, but I kind of screwed up and forgot to replug my microphone in when I was done with the whole not talking bit. And so we will be speeding up. Yeah, I think this is the part. Yeah, this is the part. We're doing things a lot faster now, relatively. And unfortunately, we're not having any music at all for most of this video, which is kind of annoying because I do like having the background music from KSP. It's quite relaxing and just gives you a little bit something else to focus on besides a single voice. Wait, did I copy a section of video over or something? I might have. Oh well. It doesn't matter. We'll get there eventually. I might be reusing footage. I kind of missed that. Yeah, here we lost our targeting somehow, so had to make a quick adjustment with our RCS. There we go. Much better. So let's see. Let's talk more about my Kethane mining operation. The mining operation is going to consist of at least 4 different vehicles attached to each other, at least for the transfer. There's going to be a tug, which is going to haul all the main vehicles over there. There's going to be the mining rig itself, which is going to land at our site. There's going to be the processing facility, which is going to remain in orbit. And there's going to be the transfer ship, which is going to be piloted by a Kerbin. I don't know which Kerbal I will use yet, but he will be our designated transfer pilot. And that ship is going to get the most use. It's going to be going down to Minimus and back up, transferring the fuel from the refinery, or not the refinery, from the mining rig to the refinery, where it can get processed into actual rocket fuel and monopropellant, and then get used by our larger craft. I'm thinking of having another ship eventually to transfer fuel from the refinery to like Kerbal or Kerbin, whatever you want to call it. I forgot what it's called. Sorry. Kerbin. It's called Kerbin. Yeah, I was thinking of making another ship that would be able to transfer fuel from the refinery around Minmus to Kerbin, where it can get put into larger craft. Then I can launch, well, thanks to being in 0.23, I can launch craft that have empty tanks, meaning it's much easier to get them into orbit because they weigh a lot less. I'm thinking. I don't know if that's actually true. I'm assuming it's true because without fuel there is much less mass in the entire tank. And I realized that right here in the video that I just launched my transfer section into an escape velocity instead of launching it retrograde, where it would be able to travel back to Kerbin and then explode upon the ground. Hopefully not in a manner like our previous probe transfer did, which ended up making about 270 some probes from nothing. Yeah, that took a long time to actually delete. It took me like 20 minutes to delete all the cloned probe bodies, and I could only do it when I was in the tracking center, because every time I would try to go click on the actual craft, by mistake, not on purpose, it ended up kind of crashing the game. Thankfully, that problem is now gone, and we don't have to worry about it. And here we go, getting around Minimus. Now, we are going to set this up so that we are not going to lose any power at all while we are orbiting Minimus. We're going to go in a polar orbit instead of an equatorial orbit. Now, this is going to give us the benefit of being able to get more solar energy, keeping our satellite on, no matter what. And it's going to make it so that we will have the best contact we can get with Kerbin and the long-range ComSat. Now, it's not going to be total perfect coverage because there are times where the ComSat and the KSC are going to be on the dark side of the planet together, meaning we will have no contact at all. Probably meaning that our probe is not going to be able to actually scan anything. It should be just fine, though, because overall we should get about 80% plus of the planet covered. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking out of nowhere. These are fake statistics. You don't need to worry about them. They're not real. What you do need to worry about is the fact that we now have what basically looks like a daisy kind of orbiting Minmus. And it's about this time that I realize that there's not going to be any way at all for me to, well, to decouple our wonderful little probe body that transferred us over here and get it back to Kerbin or crash it down into Minmus because there's no antenna. Which kind of sucks, but oh well, we'll have extra fuel if we ever want to try to rendezvous with it with another craft and kind of just siphon the fuel off, take it for ourselves. And it's actually very possible that we could use the same Kethane satellite we can use the same probe body to transfer us to Moon, or Mun. It's Mun. It's not Moon, it's Mun. It's the moon called Mun. We can probably use the same probe body to transfer us over to Mun, where we can scan Mun for Kethane and get a Munner. That doesn't even sound right. A Munner. Yes, a Munner Kethane operation. Just try saying that a couple times. Munner. 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 I don't know if it gets weirder or easier to say it when repeating it so often. Let's see, how long do we have left in this video? We have like a few minutes left. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting the probe body down much lower so it's able to cover Minmus a lot faster. We're able to scan it quicker. And let's see. I think we were going for a height. We're going to eventually get a height of about 35,000 meters or something like that. I don't quite remember. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 35,000 though, because that's the number that I remember. Right now it's at about 50,000, so it's a slightly slower scan. And we're actually able to rotate this thing in a very nice manner so that we can get the most coverage for the sun. And the back ones sometimes are blocked, sometimes they're not. I don't really get that. But here we go. Scanner is now active. And I remember past me is talking about how we're going to be covering the planet in a circular polar orbit, so we're going to be able to cover a very large area much faster. And how I'm actually hoping to find Kethane deposits on the flats of Minmus, where it's much smoother, much more easy to land. I don't believe we're actually going to be able to find that out very easily, though. I'm going to be doing some scanning with the game AFK while this is all going on. Well, not while I'm recording it, obviously, because I'm going to have the tone on so I can hear if we find any Kethane. And here we go. Orbiting around. You can see the line forming. And we do find some Kethane on the bottom of Minmus. Not the best spot, honestly. Because the bottom of Minmus, I think, is kind of bumpy. Not very smooth. Yeah, we do have a spot on Minmus already where we could set up a mining operation, although I don't know exactly how flat it is. I think I'll have to send a small probe there just to check it out, make sure it's a suitable location to land our devices. So we might actually have multiple launches in the next episode. And that's probably all the next episode will end up being, is multiple launches. Of course, I won't have to send a probe at all if I do find a spot that's on the flats. Ah, yeah, here we go. Now I'm actually adjusting our orbit to be a lot lower. And we're just about coming to the end of this episode. I have just a few seconds left, so I'm going to stop rambling about random stuff here. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and fave. I will see you next time. Take care, and goodbye.